There used to be an old gentleman here in the county, John L. Jones. He was, he called him a healer. He could heal people from their ailments. If you get burnt or something or other, he'd wrap it up and you wouldn't have any scars from the burn, or if you had bleeding, he could stop blood. It was just he would come to my dad. He had a long beard and hair, and he'd come up there to get him trim up his hair, you know. And I'll forget it. I remember him telling my dad if he ever had a headache, you know. Dad said, "Yeah, I have a headache once in a while." He said, "Well, if you ever have a headache, next time somebody cut your hair, is take your hair and take it to a stream and run in the east and bury it in the mud of a stream and run in the east. You won't have a headache no more." I remember telling my dad that. Well, the creek that runs down behind our house runs east, flows to the east. Never did try that, but never did have any headaches. But I remember him telling my dad that.
My youngest sister had developed what was called the thrush. It was just a real breaking out of the mouth, and so Mother and Daddy let me go with them when they took her. He put a penny on my sister's tongue, laid his finger on that penny in her mouth, and then just mumbled. You could see his mouth moving, but nothing was audible as far as being able to hear what he was saying. But removed the penny, and within 2 days, her mouth was totally healed. So, I mean, it was just, he was gifted. He was just a prophet, I think.
Things I do remember, an Uncle John L. Jones. Everybody in the community called him Uncle John L. He died when he was maybe 97, 98 years old. He had powers that could take the fire out of a burn, remove warts, and stop nosebleeds and those kinds of things. So I remember my dad talking about having a nosebleed, and Uncle John L. Stopping the nosebleed. I had a cousin who was burned. A log fell out of a fireplace and rolled up on her leg, and she had pretty severe burns, and supposedly he removed the heat from the fire. I had a wart on a thumb when I was probably 6 years old or so, and Uncle John L. removed the wart from my thumb. So he said a few words over it, touched his lips, put a bandage around it, told me to take it off in 3 days, and the wart was gone.
That was the thing to do. If you had a wart anywhere on your body, he could get rid of it.
Where the old Napco plant is down on 18, right up the creek there was John L. Jones. And I knew him. I personally didn't have that much dealing with him, but Beulah's dad and all. He supposedly could stop blood when they dehorned the cattle.
Well, he used to take warts off my hands, and Daddy, if I'd get a wart, Daddy would take me over to Uncle John L., and he would rub it and take his lips and then say a few words that I couldn't hear, and then a few days the wart would be gone. Yeah, but I think the warts had a tendency to come and go, but I don't know. But everybody believed in him, and he was a wonderful old man. He lived to be about 100 years old.
He had some home remedies. He could cure stuff. He took a wart off of me one time. You know, he bought it actually, gave me a penny for it, and he rubbed his on top of my knee on my leg, and he rubbed it around a little bit. And I can remember him saying, he said, "Well, I'm not going to take it with me today. You keep it, and I'll be back shortly to get it." And I don't remember how long it was, but it was just a few days or something, and it was just gone.
My brother Dale, my daddy had a wart on his toe, and my brother Dale took him to John L. Jones, says, "Yeah, I can take that wart off for you." And it was a corn instead of a wart. on his toe. And he'd already had one toe took off that had a corn on it. He'd had one toe took off. And the doctor didn't want to take off his other toe. He'd lose his balance some. Old man John L. said, yeah, he could take it off. And he set his rigmarole and touched his nose, and Dale said he touched the wrong toe. And it never did come off.
We didn't get to hospital till 1950, or later, I believe, maybe 52. And our mothers and grandmothers, if we had anything much, they doctored us.
Well, I guess probably a lot of the home remedies were more psychological than anything. You know, your grandparents said, well, this is good for you. This will cure you. You took it, whether you liked it or not. And I can remember one, my granddaddy had his nose would bleed a lot, you know. And somebody, someplace told him, if you carry a Buckeye in your pocket, you quit. So one of his friends, he was a preacher too, gave him a Buckeye. And I don't know what else he done, but he gave him that Buckeye. He carried it in his pocket, and my dad still got the Buckeye. And his nose never did bleed again. He quit.
Well, one thing that I remember was about home remedies was my grandmother, when we go stay with her, she had a peculiar smell, and it was from Asphidity bags that she carried around her neck all the time, especially in the wintertime, to keep from taking bad colds. And I don't know what kind of an herb it was, but that's what it was called, Asphidity.
Now, I don't remember this, but they told me about it. When I was 3 years old, I had pneumonia fever. And the way they broke the fever, they put hot corn, a boiled corn, in boiling water. Put it in a pillowcase, I think, anyway, in a cloth, and put it in the bed with me. I turned over on it. I've still got a scar on my right side where I got burned with that hot corn.
Well, my grandmother thought if you had a sore or a cut, the only thing to put on it was kerosene. So she'd pour kerosene on it no matter what. And I think she thought it worked because it burned. But that's the only reason I could think it did. But that was one of her home remedies for a cut or a sore, was kerosene.
Well, my grandmother that lived over here on the edge of Bullhead, she was a great one for remedies, but there is a little plant over there, and particularly where they had logged the logging toe, and I've never seen the plant anywhere else, but she called it Pennyroyal. So she would get some of those leaves and dry them. So if you got a cold or anything, Pennyroyal Tea.
Well, if we had a cough or a cold, there was the brown sugar and moonshine mix that was, a little cough syrup, and so that was pretty common. Not so much anymore.
I got blackwater spider bit when I was 13 years old, and the hospital was over there then, and I lay over for 3 days with IVs in both legs. The poison kind of drained down in your system, and my grandma had to rub my feet because my feet and legs hurt all the time. So grandma, she kept squirming around there till she convinced them that she could take care of me if I go on home. So we went home, and she gave me a big dose of Paregoric and took turpentine and put in a pan and soaked towels in it and wrapped it around my legs at night. And next morning, when I didn't ever have no more pain, it was all gone after that.
When I got sick, my mother would use turpentine, put it in a spoon with sugar, and we had to just take that completely out of a spoon. And you don't even think about turpentine now, I don't think. Anyway, I didn't have it for my children.
We would go, I remember grandmother would send us out to get sassafras, and we get sassafras and spicewood, make Spicewood Tea, and they use that as a remedy for colds and stuff, you know.
Yeah, everybody usually got the itch. Well, scabies they call it, and it itched bad. And at that time we had a large family living in a small house, and we all got the itch. And they doctored us with sulfur, and it really stank. It was bad.
And it was just a rash that just would get all over your body, and you would just scratch yourself to death. And
My great uncle was Jimmy Doughton here. His picture's there. But he was a doctor here. And they used to tell the story about he had a remedy that most doctors back when I was growing up had a little pharmacy in the back, and they would do their own compounds. And he had a compound that apparently worked good on the itch. And my dad used to tell the story about some fella came in and had a habit of not paying Uncle Jimmy when he did medical services for him, and anyhow he told him he had the itch, he had to have some of that medicine for the itch. He went back and fixed it and came out and said, "That'll be $2." The guy says, "I'll pay you Saturday," and said Uncle Jimmy grabbed the stuff out of his hand and said, "Just itch on till Saturday, and you come back then and I'll give it to you."